Changing. And we're back!
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Baron.
And joining us is the No Direction Podcast Network's everyman Gaber, Mr. Alex Agunas.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, Alex?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Alex is joining us because there's been a lot of big Pathfinder news, and we know he's a guy with some big Pathfinder opinions.
That's true. Although none of them are informed this time, so I have nothing more to add than speculation, just like you two.
Wild speculation on the internet? Who heard of that?
No way.
Yeah, we're basically speculating. There were some major news stories that came out in the last couple of weeks, and rather than having Eric Mona on, because he was just on for episode 140, where he alluded to a lot of the things that we're talking about now, we're going to take a lot of his allusions, take what we now know based on products and press releases, and see if we can get some just solid theories going on about what we can expect from the new book, first of all, that was announced for the Pathfinder RPG line, releasing in May, Adventurer's Guide.
I guess you could say that we're reviewing the news.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Because we're news reviews and interviews, so we're reviewing the news.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts on reviewing the news.
I think that people do it all the time, so it's perfectly all right. There are basically comedy shows dedicated to the concept of reviewing the news. Instead of
Actually, a
being
very good answer to what was not meant to be a serious question.
And I was totally going to bring the product page up, but Paizo.com is being Paizo.com.
Oh no, I've got it up on my screen if you want me to screen share.
Hold up. And
I will sit here looking awesome.
Aaron?
Hold up. There we go! Huzzah!
Look at the gorgeousness of that book.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's placeholder art, so...
Oh, it's totally placeholder art. That image is from Jade Regent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes it is. So really, the only thing on here that we know more or less for sure is the title, which we're going to get to because, as with all things when Paizo announces something, people are talking about every angle. They're scrutinizing it from every angle. And
oh boy, are they scrutinizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this news was announced by ICV2.
Right.
Which, for anyone that doesn't subscribe to ICV2, it's a great geek news site, and I highly recommend it, even if that means now you're going to get information that may have seemed like we were scooping. Yeah, ICV2 announced that there would be secret clubs and freedom fighters come to Pathfinder. This was on October 25th. The Paizo website did not have this up. We didn't get a press release. So it just so happened that they got, I believe, a product listing before Paizo managed to put it up on their own website. Eric Mona explains that it didn't go up on their website for boring reasons. Like, someone was off that day. So, no need to conspire about what was, or to look into that as some kind of conspiracy against anybody.
This sort of thing happens all the time. I mean, when you are in the business, and ICV2 is deeply connected with people that are in the business and in the business themselves, you get, you have... These things are sold at crazy advanced numbers and solicited and stuff, so early listings and mistake listings happen all the time. I mean, if in the tech world, people are so obsessive about it that they put out automatic feelers to look for these advanced listings and product filings and trademark and patent filings just to try to get early leaks. And thankfully, up until now, there's never been a history of that for the Pathfinder products.
Yeah, I remember the Order 66 podcast knew that Star Wars Saga Edition was being canceled 6 months before it was announced, simply because they were used to finding the Amazon listings before Wizards of the Coast announced anything official. Mm-hmm. And there was suddenly silence when they were expecting a new product listing. And so they started speculating, and they ended up being 100% right.
Yeah, that's how we figured out. That's how I figured out that 4th edition was basically gone. By looking at the advanced screening diamond listings for the comic book store and role-playing game store I used to work at.
So, do we want to talk about anything in the ICV2 article, or just go straight to the product listing, which has mostly the same information, if not all of it.
Let's just stick to the product information stuff. I mean,
Yeah, we don't just scoop off another
the other
company
thing,
anymore.
the other thing about these advanced product listings is they often have many errors in them. That's
Indeed.
so that's why even the leaks aren't super good when they come from these sort of sources, because lots of stuff is wrong in them, and a lot of stuff just greatly changes massively over the course of the development of the product.
Yeah, doesn't this one say that like the book size is only like 190 pages instead of the normal 258 or whatever?
It says
It
it's
says
100.
192.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a legal page size for a book. I was hoping I could just simply disprove that to make if it didn't divide correctly, but it divides by 16, so it's a legal page size for a printing service to make. So it could
Okay, so
be.
that is one thing that's listed on the ICV2 article that's not mentioned on the Paizo product page.
Mhm.
The other thing, unless I'm missing it, is that they say that the rules from the book are going to be immediately sanctioned for Play and Pathfinder Society.
Right. That is an interesting statement. There's usually what's the usual delay between sanctioning and a book release? For the hardcover, it's almost usually immediate, especially for the ones released at
Usually,
Gen Con.
yeah, well, for the Gen Con book, like they usually have them released like literally right before. Like for Horror Adventures, they had the Horror Adventures sanctioned list up like what Friday, the day of
Hmm.
Gen Con. Um,
I could.
I I couldn't tell you about the this quarter's book though, because usually it's like a GM guide that doesn't have a whole lot of content. Maybe Ultimate Intrigue would be the next one to look at, which I want to say that was legal
That
right, but by
was
the time
legal.
Paizo came,
It was.
yeah,
Ultimate Intrigue was. Advanced Class Guide was legal day of too, because I played characters from that at Gen Con.
yeah, yeah.
So this isn't unprecedented news if it's going to be, especially if it's a player focused book.
I mean, it could just be based on precedent at this point,
Mhm.
though. We don't really know for sure. Um, it's also at a weird time slot, if I remembered right. Like normally the spring quarter book comes out in like April. Am I not mistaken?
We are getting a
Yeah.
book in March. It's Bestiary 6, and then
Yeah.
we're getting a book in May.
Which sounds
Yeah.
like it's lining up with PaizoCon then,
Yeah.
because
It is, and
PaizoCon's
it
in
also, because Starfinder's not on the PaizoCon release schedule, and because people, possibly us, have been harping that it would really be unfortunate if we only got 2 Pathfinder RPG hardcovers that year. I think this was kind of it's the Gen Con release effectively, but it's just out way before so that they can focus on Starfinder.
Right. You don't want to compete
I'd
with
like-
yourself.
I'd like to state that I did not harp on them. That was all you two.
Right.
Fine then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I harp on people for lots of other things, so that's fine.
I mean, we just
Oh,
simply
man.
mentioned it would be unfortunate if Pathfinder got less books because Starfinder came out, but
Is
like
that
to-
what you said, Param? It wasn't
Parham's like, it would be.
the Encounter Codex, but you won't forgive them if we only get the Encounter Codex and not 2 books?
That sounds like something you would say, Parham. I'm going to go with him
I
on
think
that.
my quote was, "Well, the Counter Codex doesn't count because that's not a real book."
I mean, to be fair, he literally has been saying that since like May, Ryan. We kind of we broke the book and Parham started saying that.
Hmm.
Well, on the plus side, Param, there's still no word about when we're getting the Encounter Codex.
But there is word that we will be getting an Encounter Codex as of
That's right, yes.
Yes, yes,
When we
yes.
had Eric Mona on in episode
Right.
140, he did say it wasn't cancelled, it was just they moved some stuff around.
Mhm.
And the most obvious thing there being that Bestiary 6 is coming out in the non-Bestiary slot.
Right. Yeah. And I'm done to defend myself a little bit here on this
You don't
Encounter
need to defend
Codex
yourself.
thing. I was like, I do. I don't want to harp on like I want to be surprised and be convinced that this is an awesome book to have, but it kind of just lined up in my mind like the RPG strategy guide, that this is more of a tool, a useful game aid than like an actual developed book. But hey, if they can surprise me and prove me wrong, that's great.
I'm sorry that you felt the need to defend yourself, Param. You're allowed to have opinions, that's kind of the point.
It's true.
But
Actually-
this sounds like a real book. The
You might even
Adventurer's
say that
Guide.
people record us for our opinions, but yeah, it totally does.
This is Alex. You got to understand. This is pure narcissism.
It's okay. Um, I mean, like, so the number one thing that I've seen it, like, just reading what people have announced, like, I'm not part of this one, but a lot of people have been comparing it to the Faction Guide, which is a book I don't have, so I wouldn't know. Um, do you, either of you two have the Rival Guide or the Faction Guide?
I
No,
have
those
the
are two very different
faction
books.
guide.
Uh, I think it's like the Faction Guide. Then is what people
Yeah.
are saying.
The Rivalry Guide is like the Villain Codex, but actually, no, it's a lot like the Villain Codex.
Huh.
Faction Guide. Yes, I do have the Faction Guide as PDF. Ooh, I'm on my computer, so I can open this up to see what people are talking about.
I mean, like, the one thing that I noticed is that it seems like there's a lot of attention being put to the fact that, like, the book is more of, like, the Galarian content in it, which in and of itself is something we should probably talk about. But the Galarian content in this book is more of, like, a framework for everything that's inside of it. So, like, rather than using generic organizations, we're going to see a lot more of just, like, standard Inner Sea fare, and then using that is to sort of, like, dictate where new rules are created.
Yeah, so going through the first bullet point, details on the history, goals, and leadership for 18 of Galarian's most famous or infamous organizations, including the Aldori Sword Lords, the Aspis Consortium, the Cypher Mages, the Grey Maidens, the Hell Knights, the Lantern Bearers, the Magambia, the Mammoth Lords, the Pathfinder Society, and the Red Mantis.
I'm glad that they put the Pathfinder Society in there. It'd be really tough to do a Pathfinder role-playing game book using Galarian content that didn't reference the Pathfinder Society.
Mm-hmm. And if they mentioned Freedom Fighters, so I'm guessing Bellflower Network will show up.
Yeah, either that or, gosh, what's the one from Andoran? The ones where all the shipped guys go around and free everybody.
Grey Corsairs.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could.
Sorry.
I think the Bellflower Network would be more interesting, though, but that's just my opinion. I think that the idea they could have both. They really could. You're right. It's really tough to speculate because we don't have the full list of 18 yet, right?
Right, we have 10 of the 18.
Right, and the Grey Corsairs are actually just Eagle Knights. They're just one of the 4 branches of Eagle Knight.
Would you think we'll see Eagle Knights?
Well, yeah, I was going to say the Eagle Knights are not on that list.
Well, Eagle Knights have gotten 3 different books. I mean, like, there's not a lot more to talk about Eagle Knights. Like, they've got they have 2 books, and both the Andoran books talk about them. They're in the Faction Guide. Like I said, there's the 2 Andoran books, and in Pirates of the Inner Seas has a full, huge write-up on the Grey Corsairs.
All right, I'm just going to do a little math here. So there's 18 factions. Let's say they get 4 pages each. That would be 72 pages of speculated 192 pages. Whereas the only other bullet point that's not related to those factions is that there's going to be dozens and dozens, which is not a lot, of new spells, magic items, feats, and other unique character options of diverse nature, all themed to the various organizations. So really, no, I think we're more likely to get maybe 10 pages per faction.
That's a good number.
It says that at least 1 prestige class and at least 2 archetypes for characters per faction. And then I don't know if there's going to be a spell section a spells feats section, or if it's really just going to be organization, each one gets a chapter, and if it's one that the new spells make sense for it, it's going to go in there.
Yeah.
Those are really the only 2 directions I can see them going.
Go ahead.
I think the closest book that we can draw a lot of inspiration for what this book will be like will be Inner Sea Gods, where all the crunch was in the section for the god it applied to. And if you remember Inner Sea Gods, it had a surprisingly large amount of crunch.
Well,
it's true.
The thing about Inner Sea Gods, though, is Inner Sea Gods was the opposite. It had all the gods in the front, except for the boons for the prestige classes, and then all the content was in the second half of the book. For like rules mechanics. Like, I think that a better comparison would be something like the Advanced Race Guide or the Inner Sea Races, or not even Inner Sea Races, honestly, Advanced Race Guide, where you have a race and then all the options for that race, and then another race and all the options. I don't know for sure if that's the route they're going to go, but to me that just seems the most likely, especially because, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to lump prestige classes together, at least not in my head, because the point of the prestige class and Paizo's perspective that we've seen their designers and their directors and developers iterate is that it should be tied to the organization. So why wouldn't you put the prestige class in the organization?
I
That's just
also
my
see
thought.
them doing it more like the advanced race guide. I see it being some information about the faction, but from everything I'm getting, it's using the factions and some history about them, but it's not going to be a chapter about the faction. It's going to be a chapter about
Yeah.
what an adventurer looking for that kind of faction would be interested in.
I think it's going to be kind of like how in Monster. I think Monster Codex is a really great way to look at how it's going to be, because Monster Codex gives you the framework of each monster in like what 3 or 4 pages, and then just dives right into the content of rules and stat blocks and stuff. I feel like this is where we're going to see with this. So yeah, I retract my previous thoughts and now go with Monster Codex.
All right, but now the one argument against that is just how little information we have about the crunch that's going to be in the book.
That's fair.
I know they're using words like at least and dozens is really hard to figure out exactly how many, but it's not dozens of dozens, it's dozens and dozens. So it's anyway, and like whether it's dozens and dozens of spells and then dozens and dozens of magic items and then feats, or if it's when you combine the new spells, magic items and feats, it'll
Well,
be
I mean,
a total of dozens and dozens.
you got to figure that if they do, let's say they go Monster Codex and they do 3 or 4 pages of actual like fluff and write up about them, because you got to figure they've got to talk about what the organization is, what their goals are, where it's from, and now they've also said they want to talk a little bit about the leaders. Like you're gonna have to have some girth to that, especially when you're talking about the people in charge. So let's say 4 pages. 6 might be more reasonable, but let's say 4. A prestige class is easily 2 pages of what we've seen in like Paths of Prestige. And let me tell you, as someone who's had to do a 2 page prestige class, it's really hard. You could easily blow it up to 4 and it would fit a lot more comfortably, but let's say 2, because that's like the style that we've seen. And that would leave right there 4 pages left if we're estimating 10 pages per per faction. I could see 4 pages getting eaten up by like 2 archetypes, a handful of spells, and some nifty items or abilities. Like, I think it's a pretty reasonable thing for them to say dozens and dozens. But also at the same time, that's kind of designer talk too. We might not have nailed it down by the time we wrote this little briefing. So let's just kind of give you an estimate and make you excited. So,
Right, but it is still an estimate. It's they're not saying hundreds, they're saying dozens and dozens.
Right.
Yeah. It's usually better to be conservative and surprise people with a rain of content than to promise a rain and only give like a cup.
No Man's Sky.
Yeah. Well, if we look at the
Oh.
deserved, but so I just don't want to kick something when it's down, and boy, is it down.
Alright.
But
So we have to wait 25 years until it's been dead for that long before we can make fun of it?
yes.
Okay. Write it on the calendar, folks. No Direction of 2041. We'll be making fun of No Man's Sky.
But I think one of the things you might be comparing would be a fair comparison is to go to like the faction guide or something like that for content wise, and
agree.
and even if if you take Alex's page counts, which I think are great, my guess is about 8 pages each, and that leaves some room for some additional chapters discussing issues that aren't just the listings. Like this is not just a bestiary of organizations, but if you just 3 spells each faction or 2 feats and stuff, that's usually what you can expect in a player's companion or campaign setting guide for a listing for a thing like this, and that would fill out the rest of those pages easy, and would, when you do the multiplications on that math, is dozens and dozens, not hundreds. So still the appropriate amount of content for the space.
So
I just realized 2 things. Well, there's 2 more factions that are mentioned in the write-up. So the Eagle Knights and the Bellflower Network are called out by name.
Oh well,
in the write-up
there we
for
have
this
them.
little ones. Yeah, so we know 12 of the 18.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
it should be, honestly, it's probably really easy to pick out all 18 accurately if we gave it a good effort.
Yeah. I mean, like, I imagine they say Hell Knights because, I mean, of
They're
course
there,
Hell
yes.
Knights are going
They're
to
They say Hell Knights twice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and so can we talk a little bit about like what we think the content is going to look like, not like how much, but like what we're going to get.
Sure.
Because
What do you
I
mean?
mean, when I looked at the write up, the first thing I thought of was like, okay, you're going to give me prestige classes for all these organizations, but don't most of these prestige classes already have, or all of these organizations already have them? Like, I think of the list, the Gray Maidens are the only ones who don't have like an actual prestige class, right?
Don't they?
Maybe they do. They have one in Second Darkness. I'm not sure.
In
I'm
Second
not sure.
Darkness. I thought Great Maidens were Curse of the Crimson Throne.
Oh, yeah, they are
Yeah.
Crimson Throne. Do they have one in there?
I don't know.
I would be surprised if they didn't.
I
I don't
never
know.
read that one, so
Me neither. I just
I
assumed.
mean, I've never seen a Gray Maiden Prestige class before, and I'm decently versed. But like I know the Bellflower have one. I know Hell Knights have like two, and Eagle Knights, like Param said, have like three.
Ugh.
So like, what?
Like so many. There's
Yeah,
so much options
yeah,
if you want to be a Hell Knight or an Eagle Knight.
yeah. And so it's just like I'm not really sure what what they're gonna do. Are they gonna like reprint like old ones and retune them? Are they gonna balance existing ones? Are they gonna be all new? Like I don't know. Like I'm not sure what the content is gonna look
Ooh,
like.
that is a concern. Like, how much of this will be reprint? Because I could easily just taking my own PDFs cut enough pages to make a fake one of these and fill up the 192 pages of content.
I mean, like, so I'm not working on this project, but I have friends who are, and I know that there are freelancers assigned to it, so I imagine their job isn't to just go through old PDFs and Frankenstein things together. But, like, I, it's, I'm not worried about it, but it seems like a very real logistic concern when you consider that all of these organizations are organizations that have been detailed very, very, very heavily. Like, think of the number of pages that have been written about the Pathfinder Society.
Three
Like,
separate books.
like yeah, you're right. There are 3 books, dozens of player's guide with traits and factions in them. Technically, they've got a prestige class in the core rulebook. Like, I feel like to me that is going to be the most interesting. Like, what are they going to do with this space? Like, what are they going to make and create? Because they've the all of everyone who's talked about it has said that the point is to use the factions as frameworks for new content. And I've gotten the impression that they're trying to make it so that things can be put on the PRD, which means, like, generally speaking, they're not going to be putting a whole lot of their intellectual property up there. So, like, it's a really cool book, but it's like it's so much of new territory that I feel like there are a lot of changes that we're going to be coming forward just as a result of how different it is.
Well, another logistic concern is the timeline, because this book wasn't alluded to until September when we had that interview with Eric Bona.
Yeah.
And he even was talking about how it seemed like it was a fairly recent change to the product schedule, because that was right when Bestiary 6 was announced to be replacing the Encounter Codex. So let's say this was like a midsummer decision.
Yeah.
And it's coming out in May. It takes about 3 months for printing and shipping.
Yeah.
Which means that's about a 6-month window for the production of this book.
Yeah.
So if they're reusing content, that would be a good way to skip a lot of the timeline concerns. It's whether they're reusing crunch or if they're just reusing like administrative information about these factions.
Right. Well, not all of these. Like, we've been concentrating on a few of the factions that have been very, very well lined out, but like there's not a ton of information out there about the Bellflowers or the Grey Maidens. I mean, sure, the Hell Knights, the Pathfinders, and the Eagle Knights have had whole books dedicated to them, but looking at the rest of the list that we know of, not like those have either appeared once or not much. So usually they do have a class or some options associated with the one or couple of times they have appeared, but there's not 8 pages of Bellflower content in the world already. There's not 8 pages of not Grey Corsair, of Grey Maiden content in the world. There's a little bit of Red Mantis content, but not a massive amount.
All right, so then if you were the person in charge of this book, would you be designing prestige classes as though this is the only prestige class this organization has ever had? or are you going to design it assuming that people have seen the softcover books and know of the existing prestige classes?
I would do whole new. Like all the crunch, I would make 100% new. I mean, there's enough gaps in those organizations to have new crunch there. Like especially the Hell Knights. The Hell Knights are known to have like all these different orders, and they all play differently. And then you also have the signatories, and so yeah, there should be there's room for more than one prestige class in those factions.
So, to me, I think it would depend on a prestige class by prestige class basis. Like some of those classes, Gray Maidens among the ones that we talked about, I am almost positive the Gray Maidens don't have a prestige class. If anybody in chat thinks I'm wrong or knows I'm wrong, please say so. But like generally speaking, a lot of them, like they could use a little bit of a upgrade. There are a couple of the prestige classes that are old enough that they were kind of before Paizo style prestige classes became a thing. Like I would argue that it wasn't until the Advanced Player's Guide that Paizo really had their direction for prestige classes down, and then that was perfected in Paths of Prestige, which is when you start seeing more of them.
Well, Path of Prestige came
Yeah.
out, and it was such a big deal because that was the first time they did any in a long time, and
Yeah.
then they still haven't done many after that.
Yeah, you'll usually get like one in like in like one or two in a campaign setting guide or a player companion. But you're right, it's not very frequent. Um, at least for me, thinking about it, I think that like something like the Red Mantis Assassin, I think I would redo it because doesn't the 3.5 version have like a weird spell list system or something? Like they get magic powers or something?
I'm not familiar
Oh, like
with
the 3.5 assassin?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And then like there are others like there are still so many orders of Hell Knight that have never gotten like their order abilities written. So I could see them just being like, all right, here's a Hell Knight for like 2 pages, and now here's just a huge list of these orders. Like they had so many more detailed in Path of the Hell Knight, and most of them didn't get those kind of special abilities if I remember right. So I mean, I don't really know what to predict, and I don't think we're going to see the same thing across every prestige class. I think that it's going to be a case-by-case prestige class, or a case-by-case organization on which get new prestige classes, which ones get reprinted. There are some that are really good that I don't think really need the fix-up, and there are others that could probably use some fine-tunement.
One
So
prediction.
just to update you, Alex, Justin Franklin in chat says there's no Grey Maiden prestige class that he can find. And to back him up, I'm on the D20 PFSRD right now, and there is an NPC called a Grey Maiden from the NPC Codex. Sorry, the Inner Sea NPC Codex, and that just has fighter levels. So
Okay.
you'd imagine if there was that prestige class that existed, they would have used it for this character.
And remember,
Okay.
that was a 3.5. When the Grey Maidens were introduced in
Yeah.
Curse of the Crimson Sun, that was a 3.5 book. So when they were updating it for the NPC, NRC, and NPC Codex, they can't like they wouldn't build a prestige class just to build an NPC.
It's true. So there are like what 4 to 6 organizations they haven't said. Do you guys have anything you'd like to see or that you think we're going to see in those 6?
I would think. No, I had a thought, but then I was like, nope, they're not going to do it. I thought
No?
I was almost thinking that that would be conveniently close to the number of splinter groups in the Pathfinder Society that we play as. But
I
if
would
they're already
be
doing the
surprised if
society,
Sarni were in there.
oh yeah, Zarni would make sense.
So if we're looking at themes that Pathfinder likes to touch on, we don't have anything really Eastern. We don't have anything. I had a second one. Nope, I guess that's it. We don't have anything Eastern. No, we don't have a pirate. They
Yeah.
usually like to throw some pirate content in there.
Justin Franklin is asking, is the Order of the Palatine Eye listed?
It is not. That's a
No.
good point.
I was thinking the Whispering Way. There are no bad guys in that list. And the Whispering
Cipher
Way,
Mages, the Grey Maidens, Hell Knights can be bad guys.
yeah, but they're not like bad guys in the sense that like, you know, you could make diplomatic arrangements with like a Hell Knight or a Grey Maiden, like. But the
Aspis
Whispering
Consortium.
Way, dude, yeah, they could do Aspis. That would be awesome.
They're
Have
there.
Aspis
make a,
is in
They're the
there.
ones-
oh, okay.
Aspis is
Well, then
listed.
okay, then Aspis is listed. Are there any alignments that aren't really covered?
Ooh, that's a good point.
Eagle Knights are chaotic good.
They're chaotic good? Okay.
Yeah.
Eldori Sword Lords, they're lawful good, aren't they?
I think they're just lawful neutral.
Hell Knights
Because
are lawful evil.
I thought they were lawful, just period lawful.
Hell Knights?
Yeah, because
they
there's the one
sway
order that's
lawful
weird.
evil. Yeah, it's the one
Yeah, there's
order.
one. Pathfinder Society is neutral good.
I thought they were just neutral. Oh, gosh, you guys are like owning me
No,
on
no,
the
they have to be
alignments,
neutral good because you're only allowed to play one step away.
man. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh, that's funny. Speaking of that, there's nothing divine in that list, is there?
Ooh. No.
Do you know what I really would like to see that I don't think was on the list that I think would be awesome?
What?
I've always liked the Sleepless Detectives.
I don't know who they are.
They're this awesome detective agency in Ustalav who like goes around and investigates all sorts of like paranormal or like occult things in general. They also do regular murders and stuff, but they're basically the ultimate like Dick Tracy style detective agency.
They must be really busy then, if they're new still up.
They are. Strange Aeons, the first book, has a story that it features a sleepless detective protagonist. She's pretty awesome. I like that story. Good job, Jason Keeley.
Actually, now that you mention it, is there anything really Ustalavic on this list? Is there anything Gothic, and is there anything Psychic on this list?
Ooh, well, you know what would be really interesting? Church of
Something
Aridin.
psychic.
What was that?
Church of Aridin.
I
Go.
don't know. I don't know if we're going to see that, but I want to hear where you're going with this.
Well, it's how to run an organization, about a religious organization whose god is dead, and how that affects how they're operating, what abilities they have, how they organize, what feats they would have. I mean, would they have like a whole bunch of feats that just let them appropriate other gods' magic items, etc., etc.?
Actually,
That
along
would be
similar
kinda fun.
lines, we could have the Cult of Rahadum.
I kind of want to see something really Lovecrafty. That would be fun.
Oh,
I
there's
don't know.
got to be something out Lovecrafty.
I don't know what they would do, but I would like it.
Bard Wannabe is suggesting the Harbingers of Fate.
That would be pretty fun.
Okay.
They're in the Pathfinder Society a few times. They're a cult of Aridin who they think if they can take one of the ancient prophecies that has been said and make it come true, that it will reset prophecy and Aridin will come back to life to lead humanity to greatness. But the book that they worship only has a set number of prophecies in it, so they're kind of fighting against the clock in order to try and make prophecy happen. Do you remember when we ran the Sky Key solution?
Sure.
That's the bad guy at Act 2 and 3 in that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like
it's
they
those
were
guys.
part of the huge special. They showed up and made a lot of mess when we had to go like back in time and etc.
Yeah, that's Sky Key solution. Yep. Yeah, they make a huge mess, and they'd be really fun. That's a good suggestion, Bard Wannabe.
But how would you?
Gosh. But
Now,
so, Ryan
we've got-
said Eastern. What would be Eastern?
I don't know, something TN Lantern Lodge?
I was thinking Order of our Way of the Kirin. Like nothing has been said about them. They're kind of like a samurai order. That would be fun, but I feel like they're kind of obscure. I'm not really hopeful about it.
Honestly, at this point, everything Jade the Empires is super obscure.
That's true.
Like they get one
Single
book and we've
tier.
forgotten about them like, since then.
So, now, what if the 6 remaining factions are more setting neutral? So, not something that's been established, maybe not even necessarily having a cool name. Would that fit in?
They have to
I
have a
don't-
cool name, but
I don't think that would fit with the point. Like, if you're gonna do it Galarian, you might as well just blow it up and go straight to 11. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
and
do.
it might be stuff we've never even heard about. I mean, these could be things that like a footnote in some like obscure campaign setting book. You know, that would make sense if they're trying to fill niches. But I think that they won't whole cloth something.
Oh, they could do the Great Executioners from Gult.
That would be interesting.
Is
I
there
like.
enough of them to be a faction?
Yeah, they kind of run the revolution. Like,
But how would you play that? I mean, like,
I don't think you would.
yeah. See,
I
that's
think
these got to be player characters friendly. I mean, that's a fun one. But it'd be tough to do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the tricky part. It's called the Adventurer's Guide, but like a lot of the organizations we've even seen already aren't really like known for being adventurers. They're kind of more, I'm part of this big group and we do
Oh.
big group things in our nation. Like, I don't really, I guess that's not true. I kind of
No,
get
I mean,
adventurer out of like the Bellflowers, but Hell Knights don't really strike me as adventurers personally.
but they
They
travel all the heck over. It's easy to run a Hell Knight campaign. Ditto for an Eagle Knight campaign. Bellflower campaign writes itself. Grey Maidens not so much, but
Yeah. It's tricky. I mean, we'd have to come up with something like reasonable suggestions that also go with like the adventuring theme. Um, I can't think of any like big monk organizations. Can you? Like just thinking about archetypical classes.
what was the one from Master of Devils? What that temple could make a reappearance.
The Golden Uranus ones,
Hmm.
the ones where you're like the crazy monk who go after the fallen angels or something.
It would make
I
sense.
just, yeah,
Yeah, it would make sense.
we need
And that would
mammoth
satisfy my need
riders.
for something Eastern.
More mammoth riders.
All right. It's the prestige class for the mammoths themselves.
Yeah, it's the mammoths who are being ridden.
I want to
The
be
mammoth ridden.
I
Yeah.
could totally play an awakened mammoth. Trample attack, tusk.
No, it's not. It's not a playable prestige class. It's a prestige class you apply to your animal companion. I just blew your mind, didn't I? None of this
Excuse me
exists,
while
Karam. I was just.
excuse me while I take notes in my third-party notebook, my little book. Prestige classes for your animal companions.
Oh goodness.
All right.
But we have we need
Alpha Star. Anything a little more technological or
the Forge Lords
numeric?
of Alkenstar.
That would be fun. The marshals, right?
Marshals,
The
yeah.
gun guys. The gun marshals.
That'd be
I
fun.
don't know.
And it
it'd
would
be fun.
It's super
committing
timely
to
and
the-
topical because Old West is in again this year.
Is it though?
It will be, yeah. We've got a whole bunch of westerns hit last year and this year. Westworld's hitting, and Ryan, you sound like a robot.
So here's a crazy idea. What if there is like some kind of organization in Iron Fang Invasion that we don't know about yet that's going to get flushed out here? Like, I mean, we know that they go to the Sky Citadels at one point, right? Maybe the Sky Seekers are going to be part of it. The dwarves who like try to find and recapture all the Sky Citadels.
There's been almost nothing written about dwarves for this game.
It's true.
Well, that's the James Jacob Rob McCreary ultimate battle because James doesn't care for dwarves and Rob loves them.
Yeah, but you think that would result in like a whole ton of freaking dwarves everywhere as they fight and suppress and succeed each other.
No, somehow James Jacobs just always got his way.
Jay Franklin suggesting the Technic League. That's a great choice.
Technically, it makes a lot of sense,
Ooh.
but it makes more sense for a Pathfinder adventure path or not adventure path, a campaign setting specific book than an RPG book. Which I know this is already the one that breaks the rules, but the Technic
Listen,
League gets a step beyond.
Listen, does Paizo really want to try to put like hardcore tech rules in this book of all places, though?
Well, since
they
this is
really?
6 months ahead of the thing, that makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like, it seems like a really risky war. I think it could pan out and be awesome. Don't kid me wrong,
Hmm.
but like, it's a really risky one too because I feel like season 6 of Pathfinder Society really split people on whether or not it was a good idea to mix those chocolates and peanut butters.
Hmm. Those
I mean,
chocolates and peanut butters mixed really, really well.
like I'm down for everything, man. Let's Pathfinder all the things, but apparently not everybody agrees with me.
Yeah, that was more like mixing your Mentos and your Diet Coke.
This was still awesome.
So other people just get messy.
It was fun to watch the other people get messy.
So a couple
Also,
of,
like,
We need to
go
talk.
ahead, Alex.
it wasn't on topic. I was going to say that some of my favorite scenarios were season 6. So let's go on.
Now we need to talk about the elephant in the room on this one. This is a role-playing game branded book in that has is slathered in campaign setting material.
Yes, I have two thoughts for this.
Okay.
Okay.
One of
I
them
have one-
is that they've already announced that that's how Starfinder is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that made them take a really good long look about why they had that division and just be like, to heck with it. If we're breaking it already for one game, we might as well break it for the other game. And then the other thought is that this just could be a test for the buying power of the role playing game brand versus the campaign setting brand. Because we know the difference as like dedicated Pathfinder enthusiasts, and there's also a certain category of gamers that they'll pick up the Pathfinder hardcover and not even notice the difference between a campaign setting hardcover and a role playing game hardcover. But then there's those that will just not touch anything in the campaign setting line. So I think this is to see if they can trick those people into buying a effectively a campaign setting book just because it's got role playing game on the cover, and then to see how that influences sales.
I think that is way too calculating for this decision. I think that not enough people like think about it. The Pathfinder comics is all in the world. The Pathfinder tales are all in the world. Every single thing connected with this game, except for this one tiny outlier, and even it, not 100% an outlier, just uses this connected world and flourishes in it and feeds off of it, and they've made this huge mythology. But yet their core line just has enough of the campaign setting in it to tease it, but not you take advantage of that connection. So the gods are in there. Occasionally, a prestige class will tie in, things like that. They do slip in there sometimes, and it just makes no sense at this point because the Paizo strength at this point has long been their quality material that they put out, their world that they've been putting out. They still say that the Adventure Path is their flagship product, not the core game. So at this point, all they're doing is crippling their own efforts by not using and taking advantage of that material in the hardcover line.
Alex?
I'm a little bit of Param and a little bit of Ryan.
Perfect place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so like on one hand, I think that the Starfinder observation is spot on. I think that they made that. I don't know whether it was Sutter or Vic or whoever, but somebody made the decision that Starfinder was going to have its content in the back of the AP volumes, just like they did when they were starting, and that was how they were going to build the world. And that made people stop and say, well, why do we have this division? Why are we dividing? Like, how many of our people are actually only buying our products for for the neutral stuff, and how many are buying it for the world, and how many people buy our stuff and just file off the serial numbers anyway? Because if there are people who buy Pathfinder Society Field Guide for the Lore Warden archetype, and they're going to use the Lore Warden, and they're going to ignore everything else in that book, well then why not put the campaign setting into the rules line for all of the people who will use the campaign setting and appreciate the reference? And like Param said, they've been doing this forever anyway. Like, the core rulebook has all the gods in it, and the advanced player's guide also lists the gods. So does Ultimate Magic, because all of those reference like divine mysteries and subdomains and cleric domains and stuff. But like, even if you look at the artwork the artwork is always their intellectual property. Like Ultimate Intrigue has this picture where Quinn is debating a guy with Queen Abigail Thune the second watching. Like it's literally her. She's watching, and she's a major character in the campaign setting, and she's in the core rulebook line. She's just not called out. Like it's like a Easter egg, but they've been doing it forever. Like it's always been there. It's just now it's like let's be honest about it.
Karzug is on the cover of the Game Mastery Guide.
Karzug is on the cover of the Game Mastery Guide. Yeah, exactly. If you get technical, Horror Adventures has the Death Moon of Grodius on the front cover. Like when Grodius comes and the undead apocalypse starts, that exact skull symbol is supposed to be like his unholy symbol or whatever. Somebody told me that. I don't know where I got it from. Listeners, you can totally fact check me on that one. I'm 90% sure I'm right. But yeah, I think that with the Starfinder gap, it was inevitable. I don't know what you guys think about it.
And
well, it doesn't really matter what we think because Eric Mona shared his thoughts about why this decision was made.
And what did Eric say?
The Adventurer's Guide is a Pathfinder RPG book published in the Pathfinder RPG line. This is a bit of a departure for us because the book will have more Galarian content in it than a regular book. The emphasis is largely on character options, equipment, and other rules elements aimed at player characters, not on detailing the precise history of each organization. Organizations and power groups pose an interesting creative challenge for us when it comes to maintaining a strict wall between campaign setting and RPG line material. We started the book thinking we should do a cool book with tons of character options related to different groups players can join. From there we faced a key decision. Do we make it a bunch of generic placeholder knighthoods, assassin guilds, mercenary leagues, and the like, simply to preserve that distinction, or do we add some more cool details and further flesh out organizations that people presumably already care about and sometimes care about a great deal?
And I think that was the smart choice to make personally. Like, come on, like, are you gonna have like a random? I mean, because like after a certain point, all of the generic organizations are gonna have generic options because what they're based on is generic. And like, if you're sitting there and using your creative energy to make a more in-depth and like personalized and customized organization, why aren't you putting that in Galarian then? Like, you're using creative energy to create something. And at that point, why are you creating this organization now when something perfectly serviceable exists already? Like, I think Eric's point is really logical. Like, to me, just why reinvent the wheel when you've already have a perfectly good wheel right there?
And it's easier
looks
to
like
file
We've actually got the perfect person to answer that question in chat. His name is The Baker is Coming For You, which is ominous. Just another point of view, he says, or she actually, we don't know. But my play group doesn't use Galarian, so more stuff to edit out. So I'm going to pose a question for the Baker is Coming For You, and then Param, you can get to your point. So, Baker, if I may call you that. Would you ever use something like the Pathfinder Society, just take out the Galarian-specific content and just say, like, this is how Pathfinder Society fits into my world? Or is it really that you don't want any of their intellectual property influencing your world? You don't want people to come in with preconceived notions about what these factions are? You just want your world to stay purely your world. All right, Param, you were saying.
I just think it's infinitely easier for me to file Galarian off of something that is otherwise fleshed out than it is for me to take something that's completely generic and then have to spend a lot more effort fleshing it out with histories that tie into my world. I mean, it's real easy for me to go Red Mantis Assassins. Well, I can just do different deity worships, different location base, and then boom, it's ready to go. Or the Pathfinder Society is easy enough if I just put them down and just reassign the nation loyalties. The Hell Knights work, just they're a little bit more specific, but they work in anywhere that I can find a place that would really like their some devil influence. But to do this, but if I just have generic Thieves Guild 2 or generic Knight Guild 4, even if they come up with some really interesting thing, inserting that into my world is harder because then I have to write all the backstory and all of the fluff instead of just changing some names.
Sorry, Mike Myler has a question.
Uh-oh.
Is Villain Codex not OGL?
Hmm.
Are we talking Villain Codex or Adventurer's Guide?
He
Villain
says Villain
Codex is
Codex.
Villain Codex is coming out this month, and as far as I know, it is OGL because it doesn't use much campaign setting material.
Okay, let's pause here. We're
Sure.
confusing some definitions. All of Pathfinder is OGL. It might not be
Yeah.
open content, but it's all published under the OGL.
Okay. But could a third party person use content from the Villain Codex? I think that's what Mike's
The
concerned
Villain
about.
Codex, as I understand, is going to be more of the old style. There are some God references. I since have looked into this since I got called out wrong for making the assumption when this news first broke. It has some more specific stuff, but not more so than some of the other books. So it is a traditional RPG line book. The villain organizations are generic-ish.
Okay. But he's wondering if it's something he could cite/reference as a third party publisher. So I guess the question, Mike, is why do you think it's not OGL?
He didn't know. I think he was just assuming that this one and that one were sister books.
Yeah.
Oh, possibly.
So, Villain Codex is totally something you can cite as much as you can cite like the Game Mastery Guide or the NPC Codex because it's OGL. I think it's a real question on how open content is going to work for the Adventurer's Guide.
Yeah, that's going to be
because
tough.
like normally you can't cite proper nouns and names, and the normal layout says that you need to say C section name in chapter number in Pathfinder RPG blah 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 blah. Like it's a whole sentence you have to write out. This is coming as a third party publisher, and so like if the section was C Hell Knight equipment in blah blah blah, like I technically couldn't cite Hell Knight equipment because it's got a proper noun that's IP in it. So, yeah, it's a tricky line, and I think I'm pretty sure I remember reading Eric saying that it was something they were keeping in mind when they designed this book because they want to also be able to put it on the PRD. And the PRD interact. From my understanding, I don't quite know how they interact, but the PRD seems to have to follow similar rules to what third party does, but a little bit different. It's one of the reasons why they can't put anything on the PRD that isn't open content. Like they had to actually declare the technology guide open content in order to put it on, to my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So he explains that the reason that he was worried that it wasn't going to be open is that any other product in the Pathfinder RPG line, the way it's listed, the title for the product page has OGL in brackets, whereas the Villain Codex has PF RPG in brackets. So while that is intriguing, the answer is also in intrigue because Ultimate Intrigue has PF RPG in brackets. And so I'm just going to assume that that's the new format for how they are titling their product pages.
Yeah, Mike, what you do, go and check the, I think it's the Section 2 list under the compatibility license and see what was added there. Especially now that Villain Codex is coming out this month. That's where you would want to go, like the list of products. If it's on the list, then it's open content.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that we might be seeing some changes soon. Now, this is based on nothing, but we are living in a post-Judges Guild world where we can't ignore that 5th edition is Pathfinder's chief competitor, and they have recently did an initiative with their licensing where they have a license that allows you to use their IP. You can use Forgotten Realms, you can use Drist and Elminster in your products and publish under the Judges Guild. So we might see So we might see some efforts. We might see some changes coming up with a new type of license. Maybe this is based off of nothing, of no official sources or whatever. Just this is what their competitors are doing, and it's proving popular. But the way to use the Judges Guild, you have to publish on their storefront for the stuff that uses their IP. You don't have to publish on their storefront for the stuff that doesn't use their intellectual property. You can still just make a 5e compatible OGL book, but for the stuff that uses the content, they get a direct cut of the sales of those. but you can make
Smart play.
yeah, like, and a lot of and there's a lot of high quality stuff there. It's sort of their, in my opinion. My opinion is that they did that because they weren't going to be able to do DM's Guild, not Judges Guild. Sorry, Jacob Blackman corrected me. Um, is that they needed to do that because their staff is not keeping pace with the production that matches demand. So there has to be an outlet there for setting material and stuff that they're not creating.
That would be really cool to see for Starfinder, where people can make their own like planets or even galaxies, and then like, hey, it's part of our thing. I mean, at least I think that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what other people think. I think it would work in Galarian too, but Starfinder is like a new thing. They could build the setting with that in mind. Yeah. So, wow, lots of stuff going on with this book.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Yep. But it wasn't the only bit of news this week.
No, I've been dreading talking about this one if it's the one I'm thinking about.
Trapdoor shutting down?
Yeah, I was really optimistic about them.
Alright, so Trapdoor Technologies, they published Playbook, and you might remember them from being on this show a few weeks back. We were very excited about the product. It looked really cool. It played really nicely, and they had a fun little subscription-based service. It was going to be it was officially licensed, a character creation system for iPads, and they were going to make a web version, and they kickstarted to make an Android version. And it looked great. Everything they were saying was great. We were super excited. The product worked great. And then they announced all of a sudden that they were shutting down immediately. There's some time limit that the product will still continue to work for those of you that have purchased subscriptions. And then it's done. They're just gone. That's the worst kind of news for a company like this.
Yeah, and it was really out of the blue too.
Mm-hmm.
The only precursor to this was that they had a Kickstarter planned for the Playbook Essentials, which would be the Android version of it, and that Kickstarter was canceled suddenly. Yeah. And I believe it was within a week we got the announcement that the entire company was shutting down.
Mm-hmm. It says that the company that owned them shut them down, so it looks like it was a decision made above them. Above the Trapdoor Technologies choice. This happens, unfortunately, in business, especially in software business, a lot. I kind of hate that this has happened. I don't think that the role playing hobby is used to this sort of thing, because most of the companies that produce software for role playing games are hobby industry software. They're hobbyists, and they're independent companies. Like Hero Lab is Lone Wolf. Then they're their own thing. Campaign Cartographer is run by Pro Fantasy, and they're their own thing. They've been around forever, and they could do much better for themselves not being in the role playing industry. Honestly, speaking as somebody who's in the software industry sometimes. So now that the things have kicked up, and we're entering a world where we're playing with the big boys in software. This is the kind of thing that happens, and it's not good.
And that, of course, is how the software, like, there's so few companies that make money in it, but they make so much money. It's like the athlete's paradox, where, like, 99% of them make nothing, and the rest of them make enough money that they could buy a yacht for each of these other 99%. All right, maybe a percentage of that 1% makes that much money. But yeah, it's a big game that's hard to play and hard to win at, and when your competition is the free apps that people that just love to do it are doing, it's hard to then say, like, we're better than that, but you also have to pay for us.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, they're also kind of competing against a very well-established company that basically has a better content pool than they do. Like, I thought the iPad stuff was really interesting and innovative, but it's almost like, to use Ryan's turn of phrase, it's like a World of Warcraft paradox, where, like, if you're a new MMO trying to start up, it doesn't matter how new you are or the fact that WoW has 11 years under its belt. Like, you're going to get compared to WoW, and when people realize that WoW is just so much further advanced than you are because of all the man hours put into it, they're not going to pick you over them.
They were
Good.
disruptive, though. They were attempting to disrupt the market, which is a common thing you do in this, and which that I like. I like Hero Lab. That thing is clunky. That thing is not designed to modern software standards. Um, even the mobile versions of it are rough. It's clear that this software was written a long time ago and has been supported for decades, but it is not good software design. And I'm really sorry, Lone Wolf guys. Compared to like modern usable software that's made today, the UI is completely different. The art would look better. They have a very serviceable product that is very useful, but it looks like it was made in the hobby industry. So Playbook came in and it looked like modern software, and it was going to have a modern pricing structure. Most everything's going subscription instead of purchase today. That is everything they needed to disrupt the market. I just don't think the market's big enough. I just don't think there are enough potential Pathfinder customers to fund the type of development to produce software at that level.
One of the big features that was also probably its biggest challenge to integration was that Playbook was meant for the entire game group. So if you just had it for your character, that's fine, but you would be missing out on a lot of features of sharing things with everyone else that's in your immediate network. And so it's not just a matter of it wasn't just a matter of convincing a single player at that table to give it a try. It was convincing everyone to try it and possibly even switch over from Hero Lab. And Hero Lab has its loyal supporters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it has a monopoly in the market too. I mean, it's the best solution in the market. It's like I criticized it for a lot of reasons that I'll still hold it up against it. They could do better with the UI design, and they could do better with the graphics. They could adopt a more modern pricing structure, but they don't need to. They own this market. They're the only game in town that's doing this at anywhere near a professional level. The other option is you go with the open source stuff, like PC Gen. I love PC Gen to death, but it's even worse on the clunky side, and you're going to have to jump through a lot more hoops.
Mike Myler's also pointing out in chat that the loyalty is not just from people that enjoy using it or that's how they've come to play the game. It's also something they've invested in, because you need to start buying all of the supplements for Hero Lab. And so, like, even if you are seeing the same problems that you see, Param, you kind of want to convince yourself that you want to justify your purchases.
Sunken cost fallacy. Yeah, I understand. But let's look at a different product. Look at one that we all like and we frequently promote on the show, even though they don't pay us to. Sirenscape. That is a modern piece of software with a modern pricing structure, and they have tons of content. And you subscribe when you want to use their content, and you end your subscription when you're not want to using it, or you can do the purchasing if that's your choice. It's possible to go that route and still succeed in this industry, but you know, I just don't think the industry is big enough. I don't think there are enough people that making a piece of software to appeal to even Pathfinder, as big as it is enough.
Oh, Justin Franklin's asking if the loss of 5e hurt Trapdoor. Do you guys know anything more about that?
No, this is the
I
first I've
do.
heard.
It was supposed to be a 5e product to begin with, and then it became a Pathfinder product. I think that it would have. I think that if it had 5e, it would be a much more successful product. The 5e is a bigger product right now than Pathfinder. It has a higher market space. Best estimates is currently that 5e is about twice as big as Pathfinder on the sales front.
I was trying to find some information about that. I don't know.
Well, some of the players on the online thing, the sales charts from ICV2, most everything I see.
That's what I'm looking for.
Most everything I see is that 5e is currently twice as big as Pathfinder. And we are entering a boom in the nerd market. We've talked about that before. So I think that if they could have been 5e plus third parties, or not third parties, 5e plus other games, like if they could go the full Hero Lab route where, you know, they can support all kinds of game systems, then they would have been possibly more successful, yeah.
this isn't really my element, so I'm just going to nod my head in agreement.
I am going to say I was surprised by the reaction when the news hit, because it didn't seem like there was much reaction. I know when Playbook was first announced, a lot of people were poking me to try and find more information about it, specifically comparing it to Hero Lab. And then they did a really good job. They were at PaizoCon. They were very personable. They had a big portion of the Pathfinder Society area, the ballroom, was dedicated to promoting Playbook. So it felt like they got out there.
They had a panel at Gen Con.
So then I guess it just wasn't catching on. Maybe Slingshot Capital Partners was right to pull the plug, because no one was like, man, that really... Well, I'm sure there were some people, but there was not the outcry of disappointment that I was expecting.
So, I subscribed to it right when it started, and at least for me, like, the way the character buildings thing worked, it just kind of was like, because the way it was programmed, like, they only did it like book at a time, and like they started core and went down, and like, it's kind of rough to say, oh, guess what, here's this awesome new tool, you're using core rulebook only, and it's like, oh, well, this isn't really what I wanted to play for my characters, so I'll just keep waiting until you get down there, and I guess not enough people are willing to wait.
Right. And by how fast this happened, and the fact that it was made a call, and what they were doing beforehand, and the fact that this was made a call from the people that own the company rather than the company itself, I think they're probably caught by surprise. When you're one of those investor companies at the top like that, you're just running numbers. You're just looking at the math, and the math probably told them they could make more money investing the money they were investing in this program in some other company's initiative, and as soon as the numbers hit that point, then just automatically they kill it. I mean, I think that it was I just think that you can't make a lot. You can't get rich in role-playing games unless you are like the owner of one of the most successful companies in the industry. I mean, let's face it, nobody in the industry is getting rich except for like very few select, and this wasn't going to be one of those situations either.
I would say that the people who are rich in the industry were probably rich before being where they got rich other ways. Like, I don't think that you make your millions in role playing.
No. You make your like Magic the Gathering make millions. It's you don't get rich in role playing, and so developing software at that level, it's good lord, it would be easier to make a freaking iOS game that ripped off Candy Crush and make a lot more money than that, and with a lot less effort.
So, based on Mike Myler's comments, I just checked, and actually, Playbook Essentials was launched on Kickstarter. I thought it was canceled right before. So it was launched. It raised about $5,000, and that's when the plug was pulled. So I wonder if about $5,000.
How much
of
did
a
they
30,000 goal?
That's really
30,000
low.
ask.
That was really low for an ask.
That's really low.
Oh well.
So I have a feeling that the investors were waiting to see how the launch would go, and then if it didn't immediately fund, then they were pulling out.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know they were doing a Kickstarter.
Well, one of the big things that my barrier to entry was that it wasn't available on Android. And again, because you had to get the entire game table to agree to join it, unless you've got an entire Apple table, you're going to get that at least one player that's like, this isn't for me, because it's literally not on any device I own.
That's true.
Yeah. And everybody's getting Kickstarter weary right now anyway. Kickstarters are very weary.
Are they?
Yeah.
In the gaming market?
Yes. Like, there's not as many. It's not pulling in nearly as much either. There's a few great success stories anymore, but there's been plenty of reason not to. There's been a lot of high-profile failures.
It's true.
Maybe in technology, because the board game section's doing amazing.
Oh, I guess board gaming is probably not be doing amazing. I don't know, but I know that
that's my corner of Kickstarter.
I know that the software side of things has been not so great lately.
Yeah.
So before it gets lost, I do want to point out that the Baker is Coming for You had answers for our previous questions, saying that he or she will use mechanics, but any background information they will just ignore. And then also when we were talking about Trapdoor, they said, I still can't get my players to use the PRD. The love of books is strong in my group. I'm kind of fascinated by you right now. The Baker is Coming for You. Not just because you've got one of my favorite Twitch handles.
Yeah. I don't know. Wow, not using the PRD. I have a friend who's like that. He carries all like 10 of his hardcover books with him to every game session, and I'm like, I feel sorry for your back, sir. He's got like a crate at this point, and like the crate is full, and now the crate is piling up.
I remember my milk crate days, but now mostly we game at my place. But when we don't, yeah, I just reference things on my phone.
Yeah.
I built a game room. I can keep my books in there.
And I mean, like, when you say I have a game room, it's kind of like, I have a game. It's like, oh, can we play at my place? I have a game room. Your request is invalid. Right? It's true. It's true.
I don't understand. Oh,
as opposed to playing anywhere else. No, I still play I do my PFS at the local store.
Okay, that's fair. I meant like home games. Like, I'm sorry, if I built a game room, like, all of my home groups would be playing there. They wouldn't be going anywhere.
Yes.
I'd be like, no, sit in my majesty. Because, of course, my GM table would be like a throne. Like this, see?
I do get the comfy chair.
You can have, like, the Jarl table in the remastered Skyrim game.
Right.
Show.
Well, I guess there's nothing more to say on this other than it was bad news. So what else we got?
Actually, the next bit I've got is a news item, but it's really more of a no question. And since we've got a couple of questions at this point, you guys want to transition into our first in a long time no question segment.
Okay.
Ooh, sure.
Okay. So what are we asking the question? We only got the one question.
All right. Well, actually, we got a question on our page from Caroline Salambier.
Okay.
She's one of my local players, and she was wondering what was going on with RPG Superstar this year. Nothing so far.
Yeah, there's been no smoke.
Yeah, so last year there were 2 RPG Superstars. Mm-hmm. There was the beginning of the year, which No Direction Podcast's own Monica Marlowe won, and I believe it was February, maybe it was March. And up to that point, the winner of RPG Superstar was listed by their year. So from Neil Spicer in 2009 to Monica in 2016, it was always RPG Superstar 2000XX. And then in October, there was a second RPG Superstar for 2016, and this one was dubbed Season 9. And so it seemed like going forward, instead of doing it by the year, they would do it by a chronological order of how many RPG Superstars there have been. And Nick Wasco won that one. And October has come and gone, and there was no RPG Superstar. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been saying 2016. That's actually all 2015. There has been no RPG Superstar 2016, and no talks of doing it in the next couple of months, at least nothing public. Yeah. Like, we knew well ahead of time that RPG Superstar Season 9 was going to be in October 2015. So, I don't know. I asked if there was any official company line to some people at Paizo. They said not that they're aware of. It could be a Starfinder thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They might be.
I think it's Starfinder.
Yeah, the RPG Superstar for Starfinder makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
that's interesting. So you're saying Season 10, whenever it happens, will be for Starfinder and not for the... yeah, that makes sense. I was just thinking that they were so busy internally that they couldn't host an RPG Superstar Season 10 yet.
Well, we see that
not both?
It always takes a lot of their effort. It was always a big production, and I'm just wondering if the returns just weren't worth it anymore. I mean, it's like watching American Idol. The first few times you watch American Idol, it's fresh and interesting, and who even remembers who won the last year's American Idol?
Nobody, because they got canceled.
See, great. I didn't even know it was canceled.
My mom is into all the dance shows and the singing shows. So I know that.
Then
I got that reference.
Like, why would they have season 9 in October 2015? Actually, I guess that kind of indicates right from then that they were already looking to shake up the formula.
Right. Well, they were shaking up the formula. The official line for season 9, the shift, was to shake up the formula to put it at a time when they could make the time investment and not having to do RPG Superstar when they were in the middle of Con Crunch, which was when it was. Because even though all the cool stuff releases in the fall, like the August stuff is what everybody's talking about, that's not when they're doing it. They do it in March. That's when the books that are coming out in for the cons are written. So that's when they're the most crazy. But then, if RPG Superstar Season 9 came and went and didn't get a whole lot of attention, or generate a lot of sales, or etc., you eventually, for everything you do, remember, this is the company run by Lisa Stevens, who restructured WotC because it was making terrible business decisions. Paizo does a lot of cool stuff, but at the end of the day, they make sound business decisions.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my thoughts are still that Starfinder production has taken too many team resources to, host the show and have people who can do it. So maybe after Starfinder's done, I think doing it for Starfinder makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But for the time being, man, like, I just don't think there's the manpower for it. Something's got to give, and basically, RPG Superstar is easy.
Think about how much you could use it as a promotion for Starfinder too. If this was be a standalone adventure to release alongside Starfinder at launch, they kick this thing off the months leading up to Starfinder. These people, they're given like vague hints onto what they need to build, and then it builds it up. The whole contest builds it up to releasing a product to launch besides Starfinder.
Wouldn't that require them to do an open set of the rules?
No, because almost all of it is conceptual anyway. They just change the format of it. Build it in Pathfinder. Build your monsters in Pathfinder. You will be taught how to do Starfinder after we give you the job.
That seems like it would be really hard if it's going to be a pull for people who like are not necessarily experienced in the game. Like, I don't want to speak for Monica, but like doing what she did for RPG Superstar was her first real like writing assignment for a publisher. Like, I feel like being told, all right, so you're just learning and getting the hang of this system, and you won this big contest using this system. Now redo everything in something entirely new. That sounds really scary to me. Like, how that terrifying even.
Well, this isn't RPG mediocre.
Do you want RPG mediocre? Because that's how you get it.
Aww.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I countered your flashy statement with an Archer quote. Boom.
Ryan, you weighing in here?
No, I think
Team Alex.
so. Okay, between specifically what you two were just proposing, no, I think I'm more on Param's side of that. It's actually, I very much liked the way you broke it down, where you start with Pathfinder and you end up at Starfinder, like at least from using design chops.
I think most of the votes for the items don't go into the detail on the crunch anyway. I think everybody's just voting on flavor and writing talent.
Yeah, but every round still has its fair amount of crunch. It's actually just later rounds I find where the crunch goes away. That's where it's pitching an adventure idea, and you only, unless you've got some kind of mechanical subsystem that really needs to be outlined, they even tell you not to do much mechanics.
I'm now reminded that the chat is about 3 minutes behind us based on the comments that are dropping.
Yeah, because we want to see if they're on Team Alex or Team Param, and
we won't
they're
know
just
until
too
we're
far
past
behind.
this. All right. Oh, something important, chat. If you got any questions for us, you better start getting them in now. We're running out of material.
All right. So another question from this was actually emailed to us. We got a rare email question from Mark Weber. He emailed nodirection@hotmail.com, which reminds me, Param, we did not talk about how people can get us their questions.
Oh.
Before we get to Mark's question, why don't you remind people, if they have questions and they're not currently in chat, how do they get them to us?
Well, if you're not currently in the live audience, you can get us the questions by emailing nodirection@hotmail.com or going to facebook.com/nodirection and asking your questions there. You can also get us your questions by leaving comments on our articles and episode postings on the website, and we'll catch them there too.
Mark Weber wants to know, could you give an example of what you do logistically just before, during, and after a good-sized combat encounter, i.e. how you handle maps/mapping, minis, initiative, visual aids, etc.? All right, Perrin, why don't you give us...
Can you
why don't you start off?
reread
So,
the question?
what's that?
Can you reread the question?
Yes. All right. Mark Weber would like an example of what we do logistically.
Okay.
It's actually a three-part question. So what we do logistically just before a big encounter, what we do during a big encounter, and what we do after a big combat encounter.
Okay. Well,
So starting just before an encounter, how do you set up for it? What do you do?
okay, if this is a set piece encounter that I know is coming, all the minis have already been pre-picked at the beginning of the session before my players sit down, and they're hiding nestily in their groups behind my screen. If I have had enough time, the battle mat has either been pre-drawn, or I'm using a flip mat that is ready to go, or if I'm being super ambitious, it's a 3D map that has been made specifically for said encounter. All this has to be done in advance, though. If I'm having to draw the map out, and I know it's going to be big, I drop a cliffhanger and then tell them to go take a smoke break. And then I draw the map out. Then I drop all my minis on there. During the encounter, just try to keep everybody moving at a pace fast as possible. I've gone away from using the egg timer rule, because my players have just sort of adopted into getting faster and faster, especially as the better we get to it. And so we just run a big encounter just like we run any other encounter. I just try to keep pace and keep it up. And after the encounter, I don't know what is so special after an encounter. I take all the minis off the board and we move on with the game.
Well, if we were to do this in Final Fantasy terms, the before the encounter would be where it just gets fuzzy and then zooms in. The after encounter is the fanfare. So how do you transition from what you were doing to an encounter and then out of an encounter?
Well, gosh, after a big encounter, especially if it's an important encounter, there's a decompression that happens after a big fight. I mean, if they're in tactical brain mode for the 30 minutes, 45 minutes that a big Pathfinder encounter can take, and that's some fights I've had last into the hours of real lifetime fighting in Pathfinder. Once it's over, everybody's just like, whew! And I have to give them that time. We have to de-stress. I let them go into accounting mode. I just wait. Somebody eventually says, well, what did he have on him? We sort of go out of character and start taking care of just the math parts of the game. I don't hand out experience after each encounter. I do that at the end of the night. But usually they do want to at least tend to the loot right away because everybody's wanting to get... anymore, it's... Does he have any healing potions? We really need some healing potions. And then big encounters often end my night. Like if the biggest encounter, I try to time it so where they are the last things the players do for the night. But if I'm going to have more, I just sort of let them do that decompress for a little while, 3 or 4 minutes, handle the loot, handle just the pure math and handling of the game, and then just go, okay, let's try and get back in this. And I say, you're standing around, and just try to work them back into character. But I can't do it a seamless transition unless it was something trivial, because if they're amped up in tactical fight mode, they're not quite ready to easily transition into roleplay mode.
That's fascinating. And I will get to it when I get to my answer. Alex, did you want to weigh in first?
I make the map and I put the minis on the map, and then I try my very best to kill my players without being mean about it.
Oh.
And then I take the minis off. Like, I mean, for me at least, it's just kind of like a rhythm. So, like, you know, I usually have an idea of what I want or where I'm going to go, but I might not always have it out. Sometimes, like, I'll pull them out while I'm giving descriptions of things that are happening. So, like, you know, the players are like, all right, you hear the glass break, and I'm, like, popping minis out and getting ready so they know there's something coming, and they're just waiting to see what happens. During an encounter, I'm mostly a dervish of computers and iPhones, and my new battle strategy, which is awesome for when I'm prepping. I use my Mac to take. I open up the PDFs, right, and then I take pictures of the stat blocks using Control uh, Apple button 4, and it like makes a camera, and so I take a picture of the stat block and I put all the pictures in a file, and then I just quickly open all the pictures I need, and I have them all labeled by like what kind of monster they are, what kind of hazard they are, so they just go alphabetically. And like for me, that's just really quick and easy. Ever since I got my laptop, not last Gen Con, but the year before, I've been moving a lot towards doing all my prep work digitally when I can. And then after the encounter, I kind of just close all the things. I give up. I give the wrap up, and my players loot the bodies, and we move on to the next thing. I don't know. I guess like every encounter is different, so it's kind of hard for me to say like what I do before and during and after. I'm doing this new thing for Strange Ions though before the encounters. Let me get it so I can put it on camera. So in Strange Aeons, the map is ginormous. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but like the entire dungeon takes place in an asylum. It's in the product description, and so like
that's the one that the Order of the Amber Dice made that big deal map.
Huge thing. They had to fit it on the mega map.
Tapestry. Yeah. So I went and I bought a bunch of sheets of the gaming paper, and I just bought plain white paper, and I've been drawing the map out and cutting it out on gaming paper to just put down.
Oh,
so
that's a neat way to do it.
So, spoiler alert. Sorry, guys.
That's actually because do you remember Dungeon a Day? It was Monty Cook's subscription based. I was subscribed to Dungeon a Day, and when I was running it, that's what I would do, which is a weird amount of prep for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would cut up my gaming paper into little rooms, and I would give each room a physical file folder. And just kind of tuck it all in there in numerical order, the number of the room written on the back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was weirdly organized for that campaign.
Yeah, like I'm trying to be for Strange Aeons because this is the first time I'm running an adventure path. Mm-hmm. This is going to be I've played in two already, and I've done like not one book, but like a couple encounters of Skull and Shackles. But this is the first time like I'm actually running one, so I'm trying to be prepared in advance. Like if I'm doing my own homebrew, like I'll slap down a flip mat or I'll draw it quick on the table just to get everybody going, because my group is more about the role playing anyway, so I have time. But this group is a much more combat oriented group, and I don't want to have to draw these rooms in advance, especially if like they're going to be moving from room to room, and it's like hundreds of feet. I just want to be able to pull out the tile that I made and slapped it down. You know what I mean? So this is my new thing. I bought gaming paper from Gaming Paper. I also bought this for my the kingdom building game that my homebrew that my friends are doing. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it, but I think
is that the hex?
Yeah, I think I'm going to make a big map for them and just like slap down the map and be like, "This is your world, live in it." But so it's tough to do as much prep work as I want nowadays. Now that I do so much with like freelancing and running a publishing company, and I'm getting ready to go for my masters. So we'll see how things go if I can stay this prepared.
Oh, then you'll be the every master gamer.
Listen, I'll be Everyman Gamer PhD. It'll be great, but I won't have my PhD. But
yeah, you'll be a master. There's a difference.
We'll add PhD. I'll go for it just so I can call it that.
Okay, go for the PhD, but you got to earn those letters.
I could be Dr. Everyman Gamer PhD.
Oh, Dr. Everyman sounds like a great superhero.
Dr. Everyman. I can do it, everybody. No.
Oh, John Bastille is suggesting you're a PhD in D.
Nice.
Oh. Something very important I forgot to leave out is not logistically, but I do have a thing I try to do every time I'm leading into a combat. Is I try not to signal that a combat's going to happen until like a combat is happening. So when the role play is heading towards a combat, or they're about to head into the room, I'm usually standing up. I kind of get a little bit belligerent. I'm a little bit shorter temper with my players. I'm trying to build tension. I'm constantly asking, "What are you doing? What are you doing right now? Where are you standing right now?" And the closer they get to the combat, I'm trying to build that stress up. and getting everybody a little bit tense because a fight is about to happen. You don't just go into those casually, and then always, always, always. When the phrase "roll for initiative" hits and I toss a die out onto the table, it's always like an exclamation, like "roll for initiative!" Slap, and then like boom, the fight starts there, and everybody's amped already. Try to get the adrenaline pumping before the dice start hitting.
So I too like to. I don't like giving away that an encounter's coming. I don't like grabbing the bestiary off the wall. I don't like grabbing any miniatures or anything. I don't touch my dice. I just try and play it cool until whatever triggers the encounter, whether it's the players doing something wrong or just an ambush is triggered, whatever happens, I say clear the battle mat. Because usually when an encounter's over, we just leave the minis where they are until the next encounter starts. And so clear the battle mat gets a Pavlovian response from my players. That's when first of all, they clear the battle mat, which is nice. And somebody will usually volunteer to erase the old map because I do not have any of my new maps ready. And if it's a fairly simple map, I'll just throw a couple of dry erase markers on the board and say, like, I need a 6x8 square in this corner, and then a this by this in that corner. And while I'm doing that, or while they're doing that, I'm getting my minis. Sorry, I got distracted by a question in chat. I'll tell you in a second, Justin. So that's when I get my minis or my pawns. That is when I grab my bestiaries. And that is when, if I'm running a published adventure, I will start just going through, making sure before the encounter starts that I've got all of the elements checked off. And what's funny is that as much as I really like smack down on any metagaming talk, when I'm prepping an encounter, if there's going to be a delay, instead of just leaving my players waiting, I will just start explaining what's making a delay. If it's like, I'm sorry, I wish the information was here, but I remember it being in the introduction, I got to go back to the introduction. Like, I will just be completely just ruining all immersion to keep them from getting distracted by their phones or by anything else, because at least then they're still in a gamer's mind frame, they're still at my table, and they are still paying attention to me, the GM. Which it doesn't feel like it should work, but it's actually one of the most effective ways to keep their attention. And also is a learning tool for because I've been playing with a lot of new players lately, and I just feel like I'm constantly playing with at least a couple of new players. So that gives them insight into the GM's mind.
I find that their mind never comes off the game when they give them the smoke break, because usually then they go into tactics mode. It's like, okay, what do we need to do? What do you know about this? What will your character tell us about this?
Oh. See, that's the kind of stuff I smack down. It's like, if your characters don't have a psychic link, you cannot talk about something unless you are prepared for all the NPCs that are within earshot of your characters to hear you. And so they just have to either take time to prepare for tactics in character before combat and just like do training things, or they have to start to intuit each other's builds a little bit better, which tends to be what happens, and it happens at actually about the same pace that their characters would get to know each other, so it all works out pretty nicely there.
I don't want them to take time out to discuss tactics I see in game. Usually ends up to be repeated, boring instructions. Occasionally it's fun, but it's not. There's more important, more flavorful things for them to RP, and I don't go over every second of their lives. So I just assume that any tactic discussions or knowledge they're passing around from each other happens during the 90% of their lives I don't do on camera.
Yeah, but I like doing it the way I do it. I like the results that I get.
That's fair.
So then, logistically, during combat, I am just a whirlwind of stuff going on. I'll usually have 15 tabs open on my laptop with all the different monsters. If it's like a grapple monster, I'll have the grapple rules open somewhere. Basically, anything that I know I'm likely to forget, I will open a tab for that. And I'll use a combination of the PRD and the PFSRD. The PRD will be more for the GMing stuff, and the PFSRD I will use for the combat, for the crunchy stuff, because I just like how they hyperlink things a little better. And if I remember to, I will have Sirenscape going.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Pam.
I've started to do a lot more Sirenscape with my games. I even put a Bluetooth speaker underneath my battle mats now.
Nice.
Ooh.
Jeff brought a Bose speaker, which is portable. It's actually what we used for the No Direction Live at PaizoCon.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we project around. It is a very powerful speed.
I am impressed.
So for initiative, we use the GM tracker from Paizo, the game mastery guide to GM tracker, or initiative tracker, I should say, because we've got the original version of it. I don't do that. That is up for another player, and I don't call for initiative until that person is ready to write them down, because I just got so sick of years of being like, roll for initiative, and then 10 people calling out a number at the same time, and no one being able to keep track of who's got what number. So the initiative, like the writing down the initiative, became very systematic, and we just we stop and we take our initiative making time.
So what I have a very set. I've learned to be very quick and efficient with my initiative. I don't like writing initiatives down. That's cumbersome. Even with the GM tracker, it's a cool product, but that's the reason I invented the table tents. The GM screen tents. I hope everybody's familiar. You can get them off of the No Direction website, nodirectionpodcast.com. Select pick the KD Makes the Makes button, or KD Makes at the top, and you can download them for free off our website. What I do is I roll for the enemies first, and usually the enemies are all on one big group initiative unless they're distinct types of enemies. I don't like Orc 1, 2, 3, and 4 don't have separate initiatives. Orcs have an initiative. And then I will throw the initiative for them on the thing. I say they rolled a blank, who beat them, and then I see how many people raise their hands. And from that point, I'll answer, okay, who beat a 20? You beat a 20? Okay, you beat a 20? Which one you got? And I slap their flags next to each other. Okay, who got a 10 or higher? Okay, you got a 10? You got a 10? Nope. Okay. Okay, and then when I'm down to the last two players, I go, what'd you get? And it takes me all of 30 seconds to get the initiative worked out. Everybody on the screen, and the big red arrow saying, you're up, slaps on top of the tents, and everybody can see the complete initiative order. They know who's going next, when they need to be ready, when the enemies are going to hit. Everything's up in the open.
Mike Myler points out that doing the initiative on Roll20 is wonderful. That's actually
It
what
is.
Jeff is
It's
doing.
great, but I don't.
As I've mentioned, our home game has transitioned to a Roll20 screen, and so yeah, when Jeff's running, he will just use the Roll20 initiative, and it is pretty quick. Even if only a couple of us are actually logged into it, and then everyone else has to manually do it. So it's similar to how I do it with the initiative tracker, which makes sense because I was one of Jeff's first GMs, if not his first. Maybe Chelsea was his first. I'll have to ask him. So anyway, yeah, he takes a lot of cues from me. Not his rolling though. That's on his own.
I wanted to say that we pretty much all use the GM 10 strategy here. I don't know if someone stole it from Param, but we kind of just take index cards and write names on them, and that's how we do initiative in PFS, and it kind of spread to most of our home groups. Since I am a publisher and I have tons of art, and I'm also a very vain publisher, and I like getting pictures done of my characters for my Everyman Gaming products, I have these little tents that have the characters on them, and I put the PFS symbol on them, and then if they're Kitsune, you can actually just flip them upside down and change them based on how I'm feeling.
I like it.
That's clever.
That is nice.
I you know what? It's way more money than one should spend on a GM tent, but I like it. Shout out to Jacob Blackman because it's his artwork.
Yeah. Now for the GM tents that I use, the one side just has the character's name and a symbol. I have since let them draw their own symbols on them. I haven't put their custom character art on them, but there's no reason I shouldn't do that from here on out, so that now I will. And on my side, it has, on the GM side, it has all of their saves, all of their ACs, their perception bonuses, their CMDs, stuff that I need to know so that I can roll things without asking them, and so I can roll things that they wouldn't know about. So I don't even have to ask them anytime with your perception check. In fact, I have a ground rule right now across all my groups that says players will not roll perception under any reason. You will tell me if you want to intentionally roll a perception, I will roll it for you. Otherwise, I'm rolling in secret as you progress, and I will tell you when it's appropriate.
So then the other thing, what we do after the combat. So Param, I was surprised that you take a break after combat, because I find my group is at peak engagement right after a combat. So I will kind of summarize who is definitely dead, who might be unconscious or dying, or might also be dead. of the NPCs in the room. And my players are like, they're immediately going into loot mode. They're immediately going into look for the next clue or wherever this combat is going to take them next. Like, yeah, combat's what they live for.
Mm-hmm.
And combat's a cue that they're on the right track, that the next thing is going to happen. I'm just very surprised. I get the idea of the tactical mind. I would never take a break after a combat. I would take a break right before a combat, but not after one.
And see, that's where it breaks for me. I wouldn't take a break. I try never to take a break before combat unless I absolutely have to. Like if I have to draw a super importantly complex map that I wasn't able to draw beforehand or something. And every time I have to, I view it as a failure. But after the combat, I totally hit the combat hard. So I'm usually really intense on my players. It's a really close fights most of the time. And by the time it's done, everybody's just stressed to the point that they just need a quick break because they just survived something.
I think in my group it can go both ways. It depends on how rough the encounter was. Like if in my group we have an encounter that lasts like an hour, which they've happened hour and a half, 2 hours. Like everyone needs to unwind. And if it was a really stressful encounter where almost everybody died, then usually everybody needs a minute to be like, oh, we're not dead. But like if it was a high energy fight where the PCs got to be heroes and like they moved on and like they have that thing they're working towards, like the encounters it's like a high tension moment where like it's one encounter but it's really one giant encounter, you know what I'm saying? Like the difference between taking a break after a regular fight in Pathfinder Society and trying to take a break in the middle of one of their big ballroom specials. Like in the ballroom specials, the energy is still there after the encounter's over. So I think that's a point where I would do the Ryan strategy. But for most of the time, and especially if the fight was really difficult, I feel like my groups tend more towards the para method where they just need a minute to get themselves back together.
Right. And then
But
it's small breaks. It's not like everybody take 10. It's just we need a second.
That's just not what I do.
that's fine.
But my group doesn't shy away from after their turn just running to the washroom and getting their drinks and whatever they're doing. Like that's when they do it in the middle of the combat, and it's basically combat is so turn-based that you can get away with it until later in the combat when you've narrowed down the NPCs to just the one guy.
Cool.
All right, Justin Franklin wants to know what is on my shirt. All right, so this is
It's Deadpool,
a Deadpool like Under Armour style shirt, and unfortunately, the epicenter of it is his teleporter, which was a minor part of his design for just one of the volumes of his comic that for whatever reason is constantly being referred to in the merchandise. I guess it's just the merchandise character model for Deadpool has this version of him instead of the brown straps that you see in almost every other iteration of Deadpool in the last 5 years. So yeah, not technically, it is a Deadpool shirt, but unfortunately it's an outdated design of Deadpool. It's a very specific reference that you see way too often.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your question, Justin. This was asked in chat.
Mike Myler is saying that he would never, ever, ever keep... That's a lot of evers. Keep track of more than 4 NPC initiatives if it wasn't all set up and auto-filled and all that. I don't. I keep track of my little tents. I don't even fill them out for bad guys. I used to, but it just seemed like a waste at this point because I have their stat blocks behind the screen. So I have one red one that has a goblin on it labeled A, and another one that has a goblin on it labeled B, and another one that has a goblin with a crown on it. So like this is group A, this is group B. Here is obvious boss. Like if there's an obvious, stronger, meaner, tougher one in the fight. Also, anytime I put the crown on, it means that this one has villain points.
That's fun. I'm down with that. I made a system similar to villain points with my the Harrow card blog that I did on Monday. It's called Tension because it's supposed to make the players sweat.
Mm-hmm. Villain points make my players sweat because it takes away their extra game protection. Like one of the things they try to hang on to my hero points for is some of them hang on to that one last hero point just so that if they take a big hit they can turn it into non-lethal damage. And then when the villain points on the play, I just love to nullify that.
Yeah, we used to run with a milder version of hero points called Luck of the Day, where you would just basically get to reroll one die roll per game session, and that just went away when I ran Rise of the Rune Lords, and we haven't looked back. And I don't know, I kind of miss the drama that was involved in Luck of the Day, because it was a tense strategic decision. You'd have to make the roll before you found out if your attack success or whatever your roll was successful or not. Maybe anyway. I'm not going to bring it up now that I'm not GMing. But the next time I do GM, maybe I'll propose bringing Luck of the Day back.
Well, even Pathfinder Society, almost everybody brings something that gets them a reroll anymore.
Right, but that's that's not a house rule.
Right. But it happens almost everywhere at this point.
The other thing, what Mike was talking about, not rolling initiative for more than 4 NPCs. I really don't like when NPCs are clumped together. I find that combat changes too much at a single choke point. So it's like the closer you are to the NPC's turn, the more you will actually be able to impact the combat. And then once you're out of it, it's like, all right, and now a whole bunch of stuff has changed again. And you've got to reassess your strategy, your tactics and stuff. I don't know. I would rather, if that's how things just happen to work out, that's fine. That's the dynamic of that combat. But I don't want every single combat to have that same dynamic of we go, then you go.
Bard Wannabe agrees with you. He says that he hates when GMs have all the bad guys clumped at the same time. It seems so artificial and too coordinated, and that the players don't get to react in a timely manner. And that is actually, I have a story, a combat story that ties into the disadvantages of me using this system and the one time a player managed to game out of it. We were running Wrath of the Righteous, and it was a random encounter on a really not advantageous piece of terrain for the players. They were walking on a narrow cliff's face next to a lava river. Not the kind of easy, you don't want to fall or anything like that. And the random encounter rolled the, I forget the NPC, but it's from the NPC Codex. It was just these priestesses. It was a cleric, but they had fireball and they had fly. So it was 1d8 of those. I rolled 8. So 8 of these flying clerics of Baphomet are coming at them on this unsuccessful thing. They have fireball, and of course I keep all my just out of habit, I just keep all my NPCs clumped together. Just if it's all the rats are on this initiative, I do by type. All the orcs are here, all the rats are here, and that's just to keep the combat going fast. It's just super easy to keep the combat going fast. But all the characters take their turns or getting ready. The cleric says that he's going to hold his action, so he holds his turn. I start the flying nuns. That's what my players call them now. They hate it every time the flying nuns show up, because these flying they were all female clerics of Baphomet. They all showed up, and I was trying to build them up like this was an organized coven hunting on behalf of the god. So they just show up, and so they've got fireball, and that seems to be their favorite tactic. So first fireball hits the group dead on. Second fireball hits the group dead on. Third, fourth. These guys might be mythic, but you can't take 8 coordinated fireballs to the face and still live through that. So it's like the 6th fireball hit. 2 of the people are in negatives. The other 2 people aren't doing great, and the cleric is sitting there sweating. And he's like, wait a minute, I know they're all on the same initiative, but can I go now? And I'm like, technically they all have their own unique initiative that just happens to be the same number, so yeah, you're allowed to go between any given flying nun. And so he activates then, and then heals the party with a big empowered, souped up mythic channel positive energy, which gives them just enough hit points to survive the next few volleys of coordinated fireballs. And that is the only time I noticed that there's a flaw in the system of letting all of the NPCs act super coordinated.
Oh, fireball. Love it.
I mean, like 66 damage, 66 damage, 66 damage. After enough of that, everybody's toast.
That's 48 d6 damage, man.
Yep.
Your players should be proud. They survived a 48 d6 damage fireball volley.
No, this was Wrath of the Righteous. They've survived worse.
I mean, that's true. Oh, that's right. I forgot I did a big chunk of Wrath of the Righteous. I did. I did the first 3 books, and then we stopped.
Did you get
Yeah,
Flying
you two
Nuns?
had weirdly paralleled adventure experiences.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Monica and Bard Wannabe are going back and forth in chat about the values of clumping versus not clumping. And yeah, Monica posts the argument that for a combat that may already take over an hour for one initiative, having them spread out is just tedious. Yeah, I just don't
it's all
see how.
it speeds it up because it's like assembly lining. If all the things that have the same stats happen at this point, you already know and you're in the groove of handling that monster. So you don't have to look back at the book twice to see what this one's attacks are. You know the attack because you just looked it up. So 3 orcs go. You don't have to any of that switching between the mindsets or anything. You know what the orc does. It's in your mind actively right there. So 1 or 5 orcs are nearly as fast to run because then you don't have to switch your brain over to running something else or anything because it's why when people paint miniatures and they're painting army miniatures, they often try to paint them assembly line style so that they paint all the shoulders at the same time, then all the weapons at the same time for each of them. It's by doing things as an assembly line is more efficient, and this is why Ford made a bunch of money making cars.
All right, well then welcome to my brain, Param, because when I'm rolling any single NPC, I am looking at his stat before I break the roll, after I've made the roll, while I'm doing the math, and by the time I'm done one NPC, I just need a break because my information retention is so low. It's the same reason that I get stressed out running canned adventures because that's just not how my brain works. And so I get why that works for painting, but for GMing, no, I am glad for that break with a couple of players going, and then I get to go again.
Now, I'm not even going to say that like the stacking way is even more superior. I just say it's faster, but it comes at obvious disadvantages that Bard's pointing out. So, I mean, you basically having to pick your poison. Do you want your combats to be slower, or do you want your combats to be more believable?
Yeah, but you're also saying faster, and I don't agree with that. It's necessarily faster.
It might not be very faster for you, but I think there's more than enough evidence in the world to prove that doing the same action repeatedly is faster than changing actions.
In this case, yes. In some cases, I don't think it can be universally applied, and not just that I'm saying I'm an exception. I'm just saying that I don't think you're saving as much time as you're advertising.
Alex!
I do whatever I want when I want to. I don't really have a set strategy. If I have a group of monsters that they're probably going to delay and wait for each other anyway, I'll roll one initiative and use the whole bunch at the same time. If I have a bunch of different creatures with drastically different stat blocks, I'll roll for them. I don't really like. This is actually fascinating for me to listen to because I didn't realize people like fought over how to put monsters on a battlefield. I mean, this is the internet, so I'm not too surprised, but I'm a little surprised.
I mean, just listening to the episodes of this podcast, me and Ryan argue endlessly about the specific ways we do things.
That's okay. I usually argue with you guys in silence.
We are both wrong.
I mean...
Yeah.
He makes all the players go at once, and the monsters have different initiatives.
Put me in camp. I don't think there's.
It's the same thing.
I mean, put me in camp. I don't think there's a difference. Different people's brains work differently, and so different people can process information in different ways. And so, therefore, what works well for one person might not work for the other person because different people compute things at a different rate. Teacher answer.
Monica's describing that when she's running it, it's players, then monsters, then players. Like, that is not at all how I'm looking at the battlefield. I'm looking at this character, this character, this character, regardless of who is controlling that character. I'm just worried about what they're doing there and what they want.
Mm-hmm. You like to get in the things' heads a lot. These aren't
I
just
don't.
meat sticks with swords to you. These are not stats with weapons.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I get it, and
Yeah.
I see the mindset there. Like, if it's just for me, a lot of the times that I only do that sort of mindset for the things with names, as opposed to the things that are cannon fodder.
See, it would take
Oh no,
more effort
my
for me.
my cannon fodder runs away when they're scared. Like they're like gone. I'm like, see ya. I'm a level 1 goblin. You're like a level 3 warrior. Goodbye.
I think I know something here that'll be very different. Do you wrap up a fight when it's obvious it's over?
Me?
Depends on morale. Oh, you're asking me or Alex?
No, you, because I think it's, like every now and then, like when I notice that like we're entering like this fight's been going on for 20 minutes. They've killed all but this one dude. They've got cornered in a corner. Sometimes I'll just like this game now gains nothing for us spending the next 10 minutes killing this one guy who is guaranteed statistically to lose. We end the fight here. They win.
Rarely. I'll do that at first level because I just get so sick of I go, I miss, I go, I miss, I go, I miss, new round. Like that first level is the only level that having the right tactics is not as important as rolling the right dice. And so yeah, I might wave my hand at it at first level, but later levels, I mean that guy's dead soon anyway. So I don't want to like. I don't even like if somebody's like, I roll the die. All right, I know that he's got 10 hit points left, and my minimum damage is plus 11. Like I still want him to roll. I want the entire thing to be cataloged. I want this reality to be fulfilled.
So for me, I asked the question to myself, does keeping this person alive and continuing the fight add anything to the experience that my players are feeling? So like if it's like if it's a fighter who's on APL and he might do a chunk of hit point damage, but I don't think he's gonna like really put a roadblock. Maybe he's almost dead himself. Like I'll hand wave it. I'll be like, and it's your turn, and you cleave him in half, and we're gonna move on now for the sake of time. But like other times, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna keep this out. Like I ran Louise's scenario that just came out not too long ago,
The pumpkin
and
one?
no, that was a different person. He did Ageless Ambitions.
Okay.
And there's like a spellcaster at one point, and my party had murdered every one of his allies. Like it was just this wizard all by himself, and the party had like invisibility purge or something. So like he was invisible, but they could see him. So I was like, well, he's got this whole list of spells left I haven't tried yet. I'll keep him going. So I have him cast Dimension Door defensively. He teleports away, and where they're at, he teleports behind a series of prison bars that are in between him and the players. And so they're sitting there trying to break these bars to get to the wizard, and he's just throwing lightning bolts at them. And like they get to the point where they almost break the bars, and he de-doors backwards again another step behind another set of bars. And so like I used up a lot of I used up a lot of their resources doing that to them. So like it felt to me like he was a smart wizard who was like fighting to stay alive. It was a memorable encounter. It took their resources. It was worth playing out to the last man. But like if he had died first and I only had a couple of low-level fighters left, then no, probably not. Like to me, is this a story I want to see on the screen, or can this be handled in a cutscene like off the matter, just flip to the next thing, That's my stance on it. I'm a very cinematic person.
Yeah, I do like the story that can come up, like if it's the one goblin that's cornered and there's statistically no chance he wins, but somehow he survives 3 rounds against all odds.
Yeah, right.
But then they're like, I don't even want to kill this guy anymore. Like
He
something is
survives
keeping him alive.
He survives the flurry of jabs. Come on.
Thank you for that, Alex.
I try.
Yeah, I have hand waved encounters. I even recently did it where it was like an ooze was at the bottom of a pit, and it was just like, you guys are just going to spend a few rounds blasting it. And I think technically every time you spend a round next to the edge, you're supposed to make a reflex save, but I just don't want to be bothered with the number of like lifeless rolls this would require. But it's rare that I look at a die roll and think like it would be more fun not rolling the die and not counting up those numbers.
What do you think, Param?
I I hand wave quickly and frequently because the next counter is always more important than the boring end of this one.
Hmm.
Like only when it's going to be a slog. Like if there's tactically interesting stuff about to happen, then we do the tactically interesting stuff. There's no such thing as a mook wizard, for instance, unless they're out of spells. But like if it's literally just
Crossbow.
like if it's just going to be tedious, and I can tell that the energy's dying in the room, we move to where the energy's better. It's just this. It's a combat is no different than any part of the game I'm running. The second that the characters are having less fun than they could be having, it's my duty as a GM to get to more fun as fast as possible.
I like to imagine Param sitting on like a rowboat, George Washington style, going to fun.
Yep.
All right. So, any other questions we have left?
Doesn't look like it. So I think we're ready to wrap things up and move on to shoutouts right after this.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 144 of No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, we just want to bring your attention to some cool things that interest us as gamers, as geeks, as people. However, whatever reason they've caught our fancy, we think that you might be interested in them as well. And first thing I want to bring attention to is Jason Bowman's charity fundraiser for the Extra Life charity. You should be familiar with Extra Life by now. It's a charity that raises money through gaming and game-related things for children's hospitals. And so he will be playing a marathon game, 12 hours of Pathfinder straight. On November 5th, he's doing this with the Zombie Orpheus Entertainment and the Dead Gentleman. And what's fun is that when you donate $20 or more, you get to decide one of the characters he's going to be playing. He's going to probably cycle through many characters during this event. It's just the nature of the event that they're playing. And so if you donate $20 or more, you can send him a character based on certain rules. 5th level, points by, has to be PFS legal. Material, must use material from the core rulebook. And then you send it off to him, and he plays that character. And I have written up a bard for him that maximizes Constitution, and then Dex and Wisdom, so that he is as survivable, even if he cannot really contribute. And I just want to see how long Jason has to put up with this character. Also, his family name is Buttsworth, and I'm kind of hoping that everybody that donates names their character something Buttsworth. And so that the whole day, Jason Bowman just has to play one Buttsworth after another.
We should.
Oh, you're terrible. You're terrible.
Hey, I donated to charity. I've earned this Buttsworth.
I want to shout out to Waypoint, which is what Vice Gaming has turned its site into. For those of you who don't know, this is a really interesting website because, one, Alex Walker is the head of it. And for those of you who don't know who Alex Walker is, he was a former member of the Giant Bomb East crew. And the way he is shaping the site up, it's taking a very intellectual, critical approach to covering games, not just video games, but also board games and other hobby games. Mostly video games, but he's a huge fan of board gaming and role-playing as well, so a lot of that content makes it there. And it's like taking a graduate level thesis on the subject of gaming is the level of discussion that they're having there, which is very different from anything else on the market. So definitely go check that out. You can get there at waypoint.zone is their joke address, but it's the one that's easiest for me to remember. It's definitely worth checking out. Also worth noting that relating to our episode that we're going to release on Friday, which is our special discussion on diversity in gaming, and we need to name it, but we have a very special talk about diversity and inclusiveness in gaming with I don't know Ari's last name, Ryan, but
You know I can't pronounce it properly.
You must now.
McGillivray or McGillivray.
Yes, with Ari McGillivray, who formerly from 3.5 Private Sanctuary, currently working for Ubisoft, and Monica Marlowe on our network, who writes the Inspire Confidence. It's a really good detail. And Vice Gaming, or sorry, Waypoint has probably some of the strongest diversity in their staff of any of the gaming outlets. So it's topical.
All right, Monica has spelt it out phonetically for me. MacGillivray. MacGillivray. MacGillivray, though. It's not. It's more of a re than a ray.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ari and I have been friends for about 10 years now, and I cannot get her name right.
Mm-hmm. And Alex, what are you shouting out?
I have two things. First, my local store, Redcap's Corner, is doing a convention this weekend, and they're doing one at the end of the month in November too. This weekend is our Unseelie Court. In spring and summer, we do a Seelie and Unseelie, respectively. It's 3 days of gaming. If you're in the greater Philadelphia area, you should come down, and you'll get to see me, and you can wave hi or whatever. It'll be fun. There are tons of signups still available. You can find them on Warhorn by googling Warhorn Unseelie Court 2016. You might want to add fall in there somewhere, but Unseelie should be enough. We also do a charity convention this year. It's I don't remember the charity. Wow, I really don't remember. But we're doing that at the end of the month, like right before Thanksgiving. So that one is 1 day of gaming on a Sunday, and your entry fee mostly goes to donations towards the charity, and we usually do raffles too. So come on down. It's all PFS stuff. So if you're into PFS and you want to see me potentially play a game I'm running or sit at a table with me, you totally can. I also made a mini, and the mini I put on the blog finally went for sale today.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, I'm going to link it. I'm excited. I had a professional painter paint it. Her name is Shoshana Bauer. She does beautiful work. And yeah, so it's done, and it's for sale. And it's a little bit on the expensive side, but 3D printing really isn't at a point where we can do it cheap right now, which is disappointing. But I'm still pumped about it. I'm really excited to have this mini out on the market. It's going to be fun.
An interesting thing about the 3D printing and the economics of it is it's not the material cost that's the problem. Like, that mini probably costs less than $1 in material to make. It probably takes about 4 to 6 hours to make one of them. And you can't speed that up. You can't speed that up in any way. I know this because I've been doing a lot of work with 3D printing lately because I like my 3D printer and I'm learning to use it. One last thing I want to do is something new we're going to be doing with the network from here on out at the end of each No Direction, is we're going to be doing a spotlight on this is what happened on NoDirectionPodcast.com that wasn't this podcast. Alright, so you can't see that one. Alright, first up, Louis Luza did the Goatman of the Lick as part of his monstrous physique, which I have a particular attachment to because it was based off of the Pope Lick monster, which is the local cryptid in my area in Kentucky. It is a goatman that hangs out on bridges, uses an axe, and can pretend to be people's names. It's creepy, lots of mysterious deaths. Go check that out if you like cryptids and or monsters that are goats and or have axes and can fool your players. Then Alex Agunas on Guidance did Algon Paradigm Steven Universe. Alex, you love the fandom, so you're here. So tell us a bit about this article.
Well, Steven Universe is a show on Cartoon Network. It's about a kid who has kind of like a half alien heritage. He's half gem. Basically, they're these rock people almost that are based off of gemology. So like there's one based on a pearl, there's one based on sapphires, and they have special powers and they do stuff together. And it's, when you really get down to it, it's a show about the feels and about lots and lots of crying. Mm-hmm. So it's a really like emotionally character driven show. It takes a while to get into it, but man oh man does it have some great lessons that you can pick up as a GM for how to use your players and their characters' emotions to drive the storyline forward. So it's really short. Episodes are like 15 minutes each, and they're pretty easy to find if you Google it online, or if you have Hulu Plus, you can watch it on Hulu Plus. I totally recommend it to anybody who wants a quick show, and they're actually coming out with new episodes this month, and I'm pumped because they always go on hiatus, and they're off hiatus for a month.
Woohoo! I'm addicted to this show as well. It's some sort of fantastic, amazing kid show. Um, Go check it out.
Yeah, like in a world where everything is negative and sad all the time and gritty and dark, it's a breath of fresh air. It really is. But they're still serious. Like they're dark, but they give you moments of light to kind of balance it. Great show.
So then we have James Ballard, who is doing an article on Code Switch about Now That's a Sword.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he was kind of trying to justify why there's so many different stats for swords, because swords ultimately are like vanity-wise, there's a lot of difference between them, but functionally, there's really only 3 or 4 different sword like techniques. Techniques isn't the right word, but like the ways you can use the swords.
Mm-hmm.
He also says that he Bing image searched, which I'm just fascinated that he would say Bing and not Google.
Well,
To each their own.
Okay. Then me and Alex did a very special episode of Private Sanctuary where we did a video on how to do a hero reading. Alex taught me how to do a hero reading. We set up the camera. We captured the whole thing on video. We talked through the entirety of the process. We used one of my Geom Baby PFS characters and answered the question how and why she joined the Pathfinder Society using the divination of the hero. Check it out. It's a really fun video to watch. We had a lot of fun making it.
It was great.
All right. Meditations and Motivations by Anthony Lee on his Behind the Screens.
So he's specifically talking about motivation of players, not of characters. So if you are trying to get your players to follow the hook, to do a little bit more of the meta, to do a little bit of the playing, how do you trick them? Might not be the right word, but it's probably the most effective word. How do you trick your players into doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm. Then on Iconic Design, James steps in for Alex on this one episode to do the amazing Flying Fox, a build on jumping as high as possible.
Yeah, I'm surprised I never did that myself.
Oh man, I would like to see how. I'd like to see how his build stacks up against my brother's build, who also attempted the same thing with a character. Man, the jump rules are fun when you can break them.
It's true.
Okay, after that, Alex picks up again with Guidance House Rules Handbook Harrowed CBS, which is the character building system to the cards. Alex, I'm surprised you posted this, man. It looked like there's so much text in here it could be a product.
Yeah, there totally is, but I can't because it uses intellectual property. Mm-hmm. So it might as well give it away for free, right?
Exactly. That's all my stuff.
So like basically, I'm running Strange Aeons, and I wanted my players to have a really rich, interconnected backstory, but they're all really hardcore, like I'm my own character, my own little world type of people. So I thought that using the Haro to not only encourage them to build their characters together, but also to put a firm limit on what kind of character options they could pick for this game to kind of add to the tension, like, I can't take this perfect ability, or do I want this or that? I thought it would be really fun. So the rules are all of my different cards and the powers each of them gets. It's a direct sequel to the first article I did on the subject, which has the base rules for it. It's really cool. Go check it out. Don't try to read it unless you have a lot of time, because it'll take forever. I actually recorded myself doing the reading for my group of players too, so I got to go through the audio and see if it's something I can use, because I recorded it in the game store. But I'm hoping that it'll be fun and exciting and interesting. They were certainly a lot of fun to divine because I knew where the story was going, so I could like throw them secret bones to things that happen in the adventure path. Very fun. I enjoyed it, and I think you guys will too.
Mm-hmm. All right, then coming up next was Andrew Marlowe goes more into his study on how character sheets influence the gameplay in his Burst of Insight article.
Yeah, he's specifically talking about a supernatural one shot that they did, and so they customized the character sheets based on some of the house rules they were using. So, for example, they were using the consolidated skills from Pathfinder Unchained. So, if you look at the character sheet, it's got a very different skill section than you would normally find. And in fact, just looking over the character sheet overall, this is a very different layout than I'm used to. It's succinct, but I like it very much.
It's cool. It's a fun one, and even if you don't use this, it certainly gets your brain thinking on how to organize your games. All right, and that's
And like,
it. Oh,
it's for a one shot, so the traits, feats, and talents, like for a campaign, you would need a much bigger section than that. But knowing what this is for informs how much space you need for that kind of information. Was there no Monica article, Param? In
Her
what we just
article's
went
going to
through?
be. Her article's going to drop. Her article's going to drop tomorrow. I believe it's more talk about inclusiveness. I don't know. I haven't read it because it comes out tomorrow, and I haven't read the advanced copy yet. Monica's in chat. She can correct us on that if I'm wrong, but do definitely check out her article, which will drop probably by the time you are hearing this, if you're not a live listener. Also to note that this segment at the end we're going to post separately on our Facebook feeds, etc., just as a general short promotion of the rest of our content. So if you see this twice, that's what's going on there. Just a quick little brief explanation and promoting what we're doing here at the show, because as much as we love this show, it is a great show, great content, but there is a lot of really great content being produced by our bloggers now on NoDirectionPodcast.com. Some of the best content that comes out of the network comes out of those blogs. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't check them out. It's all free anyway. I'm also going to take the character building system that Alex wrote. We're going to slap that up in KD Make so that it's easier to find in the future.
Maybe we
Cool.
can get it on like better layout and formatting too. It's a little bit hard to read on the site. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
Someone also mentioned in chat you reference a table, and they were wondering where to get to it. Just so you know the comments there.
The cheat death table. Yeah, I forgot to post it. I'll try to get it up in the next couple of days, but I can't really promise that it'll be there soon. Basically, the cheat death system was basically something like roll on the called shots table and let's see what type of terrible disfigurement the player gets. So if you want to use that in the meantime, that's basically what it is, but I'll try to get something more concrete soon.
Monica says that yes, her article tomorrow is on how to be inclusive, titled "Silent Table."
Ooh.
All right,
I'm
and that.
kind of curious where that title comes from.
All right, and that wraps us up for the wrap up.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Alexander Agunas, the Everyman Gamer.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.